So let's do it. Okay, so last time we were talking about box plot, and the thing was whether we should be taking the endpoints or not. Okay, so let's take a very small example. I'll not take the one from the data. So let's say you got Q1 as 73, Q2 as 76, and Q3 as 79. Okay. So, but till now, our understanding says that you should take the extreme point, maximum or the minimum point. Okay. Then what's the use of finding out the uh, whiskers, lower and the upper whiskers? What is the use of finding that one out? So let's say we got something like this. So this is 73, 76, and 79. Okay, but at the same time, there are some points. Now we find out the whiskers of these. So lower whisker is coming out to be 64. Okay, and the upper whisker is coming out to be any idea? So the upper whisker is coming out to be around 88. Okay. So 64 and 88. Now let's say there are more data points in that data set, because by calculation whiskers can any value of whisker can come. That's not a big deal. But the deal is, let's say you got points like 73, 63, and 60. So 73 is anyway this one. So 70, 70 here, and then you have 63 and 60. 63 value, another value, and 60 value over here. So these are three different values which are now. This is a lower part of, so lower whisker part. This is LW, lower whisker part. This is upper whisker part. So can you now make a guess where will the lower whisker come? Anyone? Now, can it be 60? I mean, should it be 60? Should it be 63, or should it be 70? So sorry, 63 is over here. So should now we got four options to explore. Whether our lower whisker should be at 60, should it be at 63, should it be at 64, which we have calculated, and should it be at 70? So the rule is your lower whisker should be either the lowest value, or the lower whisker value should be either lowest, or it has to be lower value or lower value lowest data value larger than 64. So okay, just a second. It has to be lowest data value larger than calculated lower whisker. So we can clearly see that 64 is not the lowest. So what value should it be? It should be lowest data value larger than the calculated lower whisker. So larger than calculated whisker value after 64. I mean, after 64 is 70. Larger than lower whisker but lowest. So that is coming out to be 70. the idea of doing this is to find out the points which are behaving differently than the regular data, or you can say we need to find out the outliers. So that's why this rule is applied. Is it clear? Just a second, I'll also log in another window so that I can see your responses. Okay, so is it clear? So hence our lower whisker will extend till 70. This is the point till which our lower whisker extend, and these 3 points will become outliers. Outliers. Now similarly, let's say, is it clear? Is it clear, other guys? I think some people had, no, Devansh, you or who was the one the other day who was having some, I mean, we were talking about it and I had not clarified it that day. Intentionally I did that so that you can get to, I mean, now we are clear that it's not minimum or maximum, but this is the rule which is applied. So now if I tell you some upper values, so now you can use the same logic. So the upper values, let's say, are 82, 84, and 89. 82, 84, and 89. So where should our upper whisker be now? 84. Good, Shreyash. Anyone else? Is it 84 or anything else? Do all of you agree that it should be 84? So the rule would go somewhat like this. So upper whisker will be the highest data value lower than the IQR value. The upper whisker value. So I can write it down. Is the highest data value lower than calculated upper whisker value. Okay, so it will be 84. So then 89 and 88, they become the outlier. Okay. So this is the whole purpose of your box plot. Any doubts? Can we go ahead and now look at the output we got that day? Yes? Say yes. We can go ahead. Say yes if you can go ahead. Okay. I think Shreyash is only listening, I guess. Himanshu says okay. Okay then. So now let's look at the output that we were getting the other day. So this data was of auto MP. Yeah, close that. So yeah, this data was belonging to, look at it, 22 and 7.5. 22 and 7.5. So obviously MPG data. So in MPG data, we see there are several outliers. So graphically, we can definitely see there are several outliers, and the data looks like very symmetrical. Okay, if you look at this box plot, the data on the upper side of the median and the lower side of the median, they are symmetric. They look symmetrically distributed, and the variation is also very less. If we look at other data beyond this, when we can still see the upper whisker is larger as compared to the lower side, and there's an outlier on this side on the. Similarly, here we can see that there is no lower whisker, so the data is mostly on the higher side of the median. Okay. So with this, we have mostly done the box plot. Now we can also visualize the data with the help of histogram. So I'll just run this one. The command is plt.hist when I want to make a histogram, and the package associated with making plots is matplotlib. So before we have to import it, as we can give it a name as plt, that is generally. So plt.hist will give me an md.cylinder. That means for data frame md, I'm taking out the column which is representing cylinder, and bin 6 means, any idea what will bin represent? Okay, there's Devansh is saying something. Sir, still the point of finding out whiskers is not clear. Why reduce the data using whiskers at first place? So we are not reducing the data. We are trying to find out what are the outliers in our data. You can imagine outliers something like this. Let's say in your class, the maximum marks is out of 100 is 97. Okay. After 97, the next second highest marks is 82. Getting it? So is 97 a representative of the class performance? Tell me, Devansh. We are not reducing the data. We are trying to find out the outliers who are or which might be making our data skewed. अब 97 वाला जो नंबर है वो आपके जो अगर आप एवरेज निकालेंगे क्लास का, वो डेफिनेटली उस एवरेज को ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट करेगा, काफी इम्पैक्ट करेगा, एंड इट कैन एक्चुअली स्क्यू योर डेटा. आप डेटा को वो एक अलग डायरेक्शन में लेके जा सकता है. गेटिंग इट? Like you can consider COVID cases in India. Okay, so which is the outlier right now? Which state is an outlier?
Kerala.
Yeah. So can you consider Kerala as a representative of the whole India? Or I mean, if we include the average cases per day, and is Kerala not skewing या हमारे biasness नहीं ले रहा है data में? Yes. So that's the whole point of finding out the outliers. So whiskers are indication of your outliers. How data is strewn, और it visibility भी देता है आपका डेटा कितना दूर तक जा रहा है. अगर आपके whiskers छोटे होंगे, अच्छा okay, tell me one thing. छोटे whisker अच्छे हैं या बड़े whisker अच्छे हैं? Like small whiskers are good or long whiskers are good? From data point of view, everyone give your opinion.
Small.
Devansh is saying longer whiskers. See, longer whisker means what? And someone said small, yeah. Someone said small whiskers are also good. So why would you say that? I mean, we've got both opinions right now, long whiskers and short whiskers. So what does this represent? See, I'll show you the data. Yes. So let's see over here. Now, you got one whisker on this side and another whisker on this side. So what can you say about the data? Okay, this 50% of the data is over here. Other than 50%, this 25% and this 25% of the data. So you can say more variation exists in the upper part of the data as compared to the lower part of the data. So larger the size of the whisker, the more it is indicating larger variation in that 25 quartile or that quartile. Q3 or Q1 quartile, right? So shorter whiskers represent less variation in the quartiles, extreme quartiles. So जितना कम वेरिएशन है उतना अच्छा है हमारे लिए. And you can also say that के lower side में variation कम है as compared to the higher side. Okay. So I hope I'm clear over here. Devansh, do you agree with me right now that shorter whiskers are better?
I agree that the variation will be small, but I don't like. I'm not able to comprehend why smaller variation is always better, because sometimes there might be the case that the data is not linearly related with the input, or we can say the parameters.
No, see, even if it is not linearly related, it doesn't matter. Variation is always going to create more uncertainty in your predictability. आप समझ रहे हैं? I hope you understand. Do you agree with me that the larger variation, the more unpredictability will be there?
Uh,
So the,
no, sir, because I think, let's say if the function is not linear but some sort of exponential function, then in that case the variation will be more, but this does not imply uncertainty.
no, I think you are not understanding this situation. The data is exponentially distributed, absolutely fine. उसका मीन तो होगा एक डेटा का, होगा नहीं होगा?
Hoga.
So an exponentially distributed data, does it not indicate I mean, what are we trying to do over here in this course? Let's come to the point right now. The whole idea of doing the machine learning is to predict, okay, to predict classes or to make some conclusion about the existing phenomena. ठीक है, आप वो फिनोमेना में कंक्लूजन कब निकाल सकते हैं? जब आपका डेटा, आप जानते हो अपने डेटा के बारे में. ओके, इफ यू नो अबाउट योर डेटा, नाउ यू आर लुकिंग इट फ्रॉम दैट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू कि ये एक्सपोनेंशियली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड डेटा है. ओके, ओके, एक्सपोनेंशियली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड, फाइन. एक्सपोनेंशियली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड डेटा का एक पैरामीटर होता है लैम्डा. इफ यू, आई थिंक ऑल ऑफ यू हैव रेड दैट. यस और नो? Have you read? Please let me know. Yes or no? Have you read exponential distribution? No, you have not read. Okay, anyway, so when I'm trying to find out pattern in the data, let me explain. Although we are digressing, but anyway, I'll take 5 minutes. So let's say this is your exponentially distributed data. Okay, so can I not have a function for this? Will there be a function for it or not? Yes, Devansh, there's going to be a function with which I can make this curve. Okay, so let's say that function is 1 minus e raised to power minus lambda x. So let's say this function is representing your exponential curve. What is this? Lambda is parameter which is saying average occurrence or average. It is representing average related to x. Okay. Now this parameter I need to estimate. Getting it? Now जो डेटा यूज करके मैंने ये कर्व बनाया है, उस डेटा में अगर बहुत वेरिएशन है, so will this curve be smooth? Yes, Devan, will this curve be smooth or not? If there is a lot of variation in the data, let's say I use points like these. Okay, these red points, they are indicating and if I try to fit a curve with this data, this is going to be a exponentially distributed curve. So compared to this, if I have another set of points like blue points, which are much closer to this line, so blue points or red points, which are going to be better for my data? Tell me, Devansh. Blue points or red points to fit
So
the curve?
the blue points are better,
Yeah.
but right now here we are checking the variance with respect to the standard curve, that is 1 minus e to the power minus lambda x.
Yeah,
But if we compare it to like respective neighboring points, like for a single point, if we compare the variance with
we can
respect to
do that.
the
Let's compare that. Just a second. So let's say take a point on this curve. Okay. Now this point, if I extend this line ahead like this, so the closest point is this one, and another closest is this one, red one. So one is a blue point which is indicating, and another one is a red point. This is a red point here, and another one is, let's say, okay, green point. So I'm predicting, so the predicted value of this curve is over here. This is the value which I'm predicting. So tell me, the red point is more representative, or the blue or the green point is more representative, or you can say another color. I take dark this. So point A and point B, which is more representative for this one, C. So which is closer to C? Point B, of course, is more closer to C. So you can say that the variation is less between B and C as compared to between A and C. So this is the simple reason when I am trying to predict a curve. अभी हम इसमें आएंगे linear regression में, तब I think you will be getting more idea about it. So when I'm trying to predict a curve, why would I want to predict a curve? Because I want to predict a situation. Okay, so that's the whole idea. So I want to be closer to C, or I want to be closer, my point should be as much as closer to the line or the curve which I want to predict than the points which are much far away. So far away points from the curve are going to indicate larger variation as compared to the points which are closer to the curve. We will be understanding more definitely, और बहुत ज़्यादा understanding आएगी when we take linear regression. So right now, I think you should make a truce with the situation that lower variation is better for predicting as compared to higher variation. Is it fine? Devansh, can we go ahead? Okay, so now let's see. I want to make a histogram also. So let's say we get this histogram. Now this is a histogram for cylinder. Okay, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6 types of cylinders. Now what do I infer from a histogram? आपको सबको पता है हिस्टोग्राम क्या होता है, बट देन इसका यूज क्या है डेटा एक्सप्लोरेशन में? They indicate the distribution of data. Another picture, I mean, if I look at a box plot and a histogram, box plot gives the spread of the data, and histogram gives that for individual ranges how data is varying. So clearly by histogram, by looking at the box plot, if you look at the box plot of cylinders, this is the box plot of cylinder. So can we, by looking at box plot, can I tell about the distribution of data across various cylinders? Can I make which is in histogram or in box plot, in which am I in a better situation to comment on the distribution of the data? Give your opinion. Box plot or histogram, which gives better distribution of data with respect to values of various values of x? Histogram or box plot? So this is your box plot, and the corresponding histogram is this one. So here definitely I can see that for 4 cylinder we have maximum number of car models. Maximum number of car models belong to 4 cylinder category. But by looking at this data, or you can say this one, where is that? By looking at this, I cannot say that, right? So both have their own advantages. So histogram is also having its own advantage as compared to box plot. So they both serve a different purpose, and both should be drawn when we want to explore. Now, next is how exploring the categorical data. So when I'm trying to explore the categorical data, a lot of cross tabulation will be helpful to me. For example, let's say I make a cross tabulation. Now, you see this command over here. It is actually trying to make a frequency distribution table. So we use cross tab function for that, and the syntax for cross tab is md cylinder, that is which column index equal to which column of for which column you want to make the frequency distribution. So I can do that. I can run this code. You can see here that I think for origin we have made it PD cross tab for origin one I have run it. So for origin we have like first origin number 127, like from the what manufacturing plant the car is coming. So from first manufacturing plant to 49 cars are coming. Okay, so this is it, and similarly we can plot the histogram for the same table as well. So plt.hist. See, we'll be doing it all this on different data set as well. But I'll just supply you this code, and you can do a lot of exploration as well. Once Amit explains this, we'll give you this code. So we'll give you a different data set, or you can take your own data set. So what I was telling you the other day that you make a problem of your own. Let's say you take a real life problem that how many students. I mean, you can do some exploration related to COVID, how COVID has affected the student life, or you can take take up some interesting problems, whichever looks good, and you can have like 300 to 400 data points. So you can do a lot with the algorithms, and then you can enjoy that because that problem will be developed by you. Other than that, you can always go to Kaggle and get whatever data you want. You can get social media data, and Netflix data is available on that, so you can play with that data as well. Anyway, we'll tell you that once we give you few files, then you can decide on your project, and then we can go ahead. You'll be starting to enjoy once you own a data. Okay, so now so some more cross tabulations we can do, like here. Let's see how cross tabulation will help you in doing few things. Then print it. So you can see here that different models. So you can make frequency of that. So this simple tabulation we have done, but this is not a cross tabulation. Then okay, so let's say we want to do some cross tabulation between origin and cylinder, origin and model year, and cylinder and model year. So let's see all this. Only one has come right now. So this is the cross tabulation between model year and the cylinder. So by looking at this, what can we say? Can you make any interpretation? I'll undock it. So can you make any interpretation from this one? Model year and cylinder. So we can say that 3-cylinder models are very less, and over a period of time the 4-cylinder models are increasing more and more. And anything we can say about 8-cylinder models. So 8-cylinder models are reducing over a period of time. like you can say 80, 81, 82 here. The 8-cylinder models are becoming less prevalent. Maybe people are getting more conscious about the environment or something like that. Similarly, 6-cylinder models are also on decline. 5-cylinder models have never been much popular, but overall it can be said that 4-cylinder models are increasing. Okay, next we can talk about this is cylinder and model year, origin and model year. So origin 1, 2, 3. So we can say, although manufacturing plant 1 has been the most popular production plant, except that in year 80 it was less popular, less production happened there. And plant number 3 is it has increased capacity over period of time. So these are few things which we can infer. Again, about cylinder and origin, yeah, we have done that. Cylinder and model year. Okay, that's, yeah. So cylinder and, so is there any, we also would like to see if any particular plant is we can see that cylinder here. So your origin says that uh, we can see anything which you can infer from this, some anything special. So we can see that only plant number 2 produces 5-cylinder engine, because you can see 3 over here, and only plant number 3 produces 3-cylinder engines, we can say that. So these are some inferences which we can draw from cross tabulation, which is not directly evident from the table or from the data. Okay. Now we go ahead. We go towards inferential side. Are there any interrelationships between the variables, or should we see, because we want to explore now? Explore in the sense we are looking at the data. We are trying to find out causality. So what is the meaning of causality? Causality means that if any other variable affects the other variable, like humidity affects the rain, the larger the humidity, chances of rainfall are higher. Okay, or yeah, I mean, this is a causality. So, or you can say the consumption of ice cream. So as the temperatures rise, the consumption of ice cream increases. Similarly, in this data, can we find out any such relationships? So let's say we can use scatter plot for that. So the command for scatter plot is plt.scatter. I mean, plt is, we are taking it from what package we use. So that package first we have to call, and after that we call the function, and the function is called for the displacement data and mpg data. So we plot a scatter plot. Now scatter plot has to be there between two different variables. So we look at the scatter plot. So how does your scatter plot look if we are comparing the two variables, which are displacement and MPG? So as the what we can see, any pattern you can say over here in this data while looking at this data? Can you say anything about the pattern in the data? Yes.
So as the displacement increases, MPG decreases.
Yeah. So what is the meaning of displacement in terms of automobile? Any idea?
Total distance which an automobile has covered.
Displacement volume, it is actually displacement volume, right?
of the cylinder.
Yeah. So the larger the cylinder, your miles per gallon. I mean, we know that the more horsepower a car or a automobile has, the fuel efficiency is lesser. So, and also you can see now there might be a smooth curve passing through this data, and we can see the variation also. Like you see over here, there is a variation. This is all variation, but eventually, as Himanshu has said over here, that it could be an exponential decrease as the displacement volume increases. There is an exponential decrease in the MPG. Okay, so but then again, had all these points been वेरी क्लोज टू ईच अदर, अब आप सोचिए कि 100 को अगर मैं ये सारे जो if I extend the line above 100 and all the points which are lying on 100 are showing exactly same value, so will it not be a good situation? Yes or no? I mean, that what will that indicate? That is simply going to indicate the variation is less, and the lesser variation I will be more sure about the point from which my curve passes. Right now so much variation is there and I'm not sure about the point from where the curve is going to pass. Okay, so the lesser the variation, better it is. So we can plot now the a special type of curve which is a pair plot. Pair plot is a very fancy curve. So let's plot this. So MD means I'm doing a pair plot for all the variables together. So it's plotting, it just takes a bit of time. Yeah. So now you look at this figure. I think all of you can see that. So if I try to magnify it, let me make it 100%. I don't know why it is not happening. It should happen. Let me try. We'll have to copy it. Save. So this is the capability of Python. That's why it is so popular, because it gives, like, with one simple command I can get everything. Now I can get histograms on the diagonal for all the variables, how the variables are distributed. I'm also getting the scatter plots for all the variables together. Now, for which variables do you see that we have? Okay, can I send you this? I think I should send you this figure. I'll send you this figure on your WhatsApp, and then you make some conclusions out of it. So I'm sending you on WhatsApp. Just I'm sending you in 2 minutes. Now all of you make your conclusions from that. What can you infer? So let's say, where do you find clear patterns in the data? tell me the set of variables which are exhibiting some sort of causal relationship. So we can take one variable at a time. We can take MPG, and we can say with the displacement, definitely it is indicating some causal relationships over here. We can see that as the displacement is increasing, the miles per gallon is reducing. Similar observation we can make from the horsepower as well. Weight and MPG. So write your weight and MPG and acceleration and MPG. Yes, my question is acceleration and MPG. Do you think that there could be a possibility of relationship between acceleration and MPG? I think yes. If you accelerate too much, your average actually falls. But by looking at this data, it looks dicey. I mean, we are not sure. Of course, model year and origin, they are not exhibiting any particular relationship. They are straight. As MPG is increasing, it's giving a straight line, so no causal relationship. Here as well, cylinder or in cylinder as well, we can see few things like as the number of cylinders are increasing, your miles per gallon is reducing. Okay, one thing we can see over here, we are looking at some discrete, they are discrete in nature, so that's why we look at this one. Look at this one at the top, MPG versus cylinder, and then we can look at displacement. So as your number of cylinders are increasing, your displacement is also increasing. Obviously, that is obvious. Your horsepower also increases, that is obvious. Your weight increases, again obvious. Your acceleration, however, does not represent any particular pattern over here. And then you have similarly model year and origin do not exhibit any causal relationship. So displacement and okay, so that's how you read this. Any doubts regarding this? Any doubts regarding this? Yes or no? At least give your opinion over here. Yes or no in the chat box. Can we go ahead? So we find out the causal relationships using the pie plot or pair plot, you can say. So after looking at this scattered way and cross tabulations, we have explored most of the data. After exploring the data, the next is data quality and remediation. So data quality and remediation, it basically means that we have, as we have seen earlier, that there were missing values in the data, like you see over here, one over here. So, or we can filter it out also, data filter. And as Amit was telling the other day, null, there is a command called null, which returns those rows which exhibit null values. So let's see how many blanks are there. So there are basically 6 blanks in the horsepower. Okay, 6 data points are blank in the horsepower. So we need to take few steps to do that. What are my options? If I have very large database, okay, I have database like 1000 points, and out of that 10 points are null showing null values. So I have option 1 is to delete the row itself. Okay, can you suggest any other options? Can you guys suggest any other options?
Assume it to be average.
Okay, Prateek had a question I missed out. Does it mean that we have to calculate the function using this? Yeah. So after exploration, what do you want to do is you want to know the curves, or that's what machine learning is. It's not always estimating the function. It's not always about estimating the function, because function estimation may require a lot of knowledge about the physics of it. Okay, if you have to estimate, like I see force equal to mass into acceleration. So if I don't know this formula and I just know the mass, how your force is varying with the mass. I mean, I can get a scatter plot for that, but I don't know the function behind it. So in order to know the function behind it, I need to go into the physics of that. So the beauty of machine learning is you might not need any physics behind that, but at the same time you will be able to predict without even knowing the physical theorems or the mechanism behind that. So I hope, yeah, Devansh and Pratik, good going. So you have an option over here. So, but the best part why machine learning is so popular is because without even having the knowledge of the physical relationship between the variables, we can use ML algorithms to do prediction. So it's like you don't have to be an expert all the time. You can have an expert opinion and later you can use it, or even without knowing the function you can do this. So we will see that how. Okay, now we come back. What do we do with this missing data? Can we delete all the rows? Can we delete all the rows in the missing data? What's the problem with deleting the rows? Anyone? If we delete the rows, what's the issue? We can do that.
Our accuracy will reduce.
Yeah, we are losing some data points. So our whole mechanism of machine learning is dependent on the data points. It is something like it's the money for the machine learning. So you are losing money over there if you're deleting the points, because you have spent some money, or even though you have not spent the money, still data is what's the currency for machine learning. So if you are deleting the currency itself, it wouldn't benefit you much. So we don't want to delete the currency. Now what do we do? What other option can you suggest? Anyone? ये डेटा तो नहीं है हमारे पास, अब हम क्या कर सकते हैं?
Average.
Yeah, we can do extrapolation or interpolation, like finding out average and using filling it with the average is one option, right? Or another option could be we find out the underlying pattern in the data and like a probability distribution which governs this data, and then we can randomly generate some values from that distribution. So what I mean is I'll give you a very small introduction to what I'm saying, although we are not going to use that, but this can be done. Like if I know that my data is distributed like this, okay, of horsepower का जो मेरा data है, I think acceleration का data है, it is distributed like this, where this is representing the mean of that. So I can randomly take any point on this distribution curve, like 3 points or 6 points, and I can fill it with these values. So random values for a given distribution can be generated in your Python, and it can be filled with this. So this is another option we have. So this is called remediation. Okay, so let's see that. How do I find out the missing data? And before that, let's find out the outliers. I forgot to talk about it. So can I find out outliers for MPG data? Okay, we have seen that outliers in MPG in that plot that we have already made. Miles per I think this is the one, no? Yeah. So let's say, so these are, what are the values of these outliers? I've seen the outliers are there, but I want to know the values also. So print outliers. I'll just, so it had only one outlier. So I think the curve that we have, the box plot that I've shown you was not the one. There was 322. Okay, so one outlier one is, yeah, somewhere. Yeah, so no, not even this one. So one outlier, 46.6 mpg, right? 46.6. Yeah. So this is what that outlier, 46.6. Okay, and it is exhibited here. So we can find out outliers for other as well. So let's see, we found out the outlier for another. Uh, so I'll dock it. So let's find out the outlier for which one. We can do it for 25. Okay, so for the data is MPG. MPG we have already found out. Let's find out the data for acceleration. So as we can see here, there are many outliers. 1, 2, 3, 9 rows, right? So 9 outliers are there. As we can see in that, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, there these points are probably uh, coinciding with each other, so we are not able to see. So we can find out these outliers. So what do we do with these outliers? So we've got two things happening. We've got missing values, and we've got outliers. So these are causing trouble in my paradise. Okay, so how do we deal with these outliers and all? Uh, so imputation can be done. Imputation is for missing values we do it. So let's say for missing values, let's find out. So print, let's do this for only this one. So I imputed it with the average. There were 6 missing values in the horsepower column, right? So I found out the average. So let's see what this code says. This code is initially importing all the packages. Some of the packages are redundant over here, like matplotlib. It was not required over here. So uh, I define a variable which will find out the mean of that particular column, which was horsepower, and then I impute the rows. So is null means wherever there is, impute the rows with mean in that column of horsepower wherever there is null value. So that's what it means over here. Imputed rows equal to ds in that data frame, that particular column wherever it is null, you fill. First you find out. So you created another data frame which is having empty elements in that particular column. Then after that I imputed rows equal to imputed rows. Now I am replacing those empty cells with mean value. So replace is another command which we use in that data frame. So we'll always have to specify the data frame first, then what function we want to use on that data frame. And np.nan means actually the empty values are represented by nan. In that that's how the Python looks at the empty data cell with nan value in it. If there is nothing written, it is nan. Then print imputed rows. So we have printed the imputed rows, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows are imputed. Okay. Now let's see another thing. We can drop it also. We can drop that particular. So let's see this one. So here you can see that sorry, yeah. So two data frames have been created. So you can I'll run the dropped row. DS1 represents the row which has been dropped. Okay, the 32 number row, and it is filled with the average. You can see here. And if I run the previous data frame, so you see here, no, we're not dropping it, but we can see now it is filled with 104.46, which is average. And earlier it was nan value over here, the same row, 32. So let's see that 32 number row, the 32 number row data filter off. Where is that? Just a second. So here 32. Okay, anyway, we'll find out, but then we can actually see that whether it has been dropped or, I mean, it has been imputed or not. It can be checked also with the help of this command. So Amit, you're there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we can start now.
Yes, sir. Okay, so everybody got the yesterday's assignment, the day before yesterday. Hello. Please, guys, let me know if you had any problem or not. If it is solved, then we can move ahead. Okay, so I'll assume that nobody had any problem with the previous assignment. So we'll start. We'll start with. Okay. So we'll start with the data exploration code that has been explained to you in previous lecture. Right. So we'll work on it. So as we discussed in the last class, so we need to import these pandas and numpy libraries. So better be on safe side, and we can just import both pandas and numpys. Pandas will be useful whenever you are reading the data from the CSV file or Excel file, right? So pandas will be there, and we'll see if, whether there are any numerical operations that we need to perform or not. On the basis of for that we will need the numpy library, right? As we discussed it previously. So we'll just import both the libraries, and this is the syntax for importing a data set from your folder, right? But you need to make sure that in whatever file, let's say this is your Jupyter desktop, Jupyter uh, front, right? So in here, the week 1.5, we are working on this this script, right? So your data should be in this folder only. Okay, so if my week 1.5 file is in Python programs folder, then your data auto mpg needs to be here, right? So you can see that auto mpg.csv file is in here. Then you can directly write the name of the file and .csv extension, right? If your file is in another folder, then you need to copy this path from here and then paste it. Okay, so it is more simpler if you just put the data in the same folder as your work as your Python file. Okay, so pd.read_csv, this is the syntax for importing the data set, and after importing or reading the data set, we are assigning it to the md variable, right? So md now onwards our data will be in md variable. Okay, so as we have seen the in last lecture, that whenever we need to call values from a data frame, okay, mds or data frame, from our data frame, then we need to use .ilog or .loc commands. Okay, and then if you know the index of the variable that you need to use, then you just put it here, the index, right? Let's say 1 2 3 or something. 1 2. Okay, so it will call for from second row to, okay, only second row, because second and third rows. Okay, and it will call all the columns. So the output will be something like this. So this will be your output. Now let's check the shape of your data frame. That is, you have 398 rows and 9 columns. Okay, now there is another command that if you just need to take a brief look of your data, then you can use the head command, right? So it will give you the first 6 entries. It is an NumPy, right? So that is why. Okay, you need to check beforehand that whether your data is stored as data frame or array. If you need to convert your data frame, NumPy array into data frame, then this is your command that you can use. Okay, so now x1 is our data frame and x is our NumPy array. If you just look at it, you'll see that this is the type of your data frame will look like. Okay. But you see that there are only 2 entries. Why is it? Anybody can tell me? Anybody can tell me why the x1 data frame is showing only 2 values? Okay, so we'll move on. So now md dot, we are calling the shape again, right? Just printing it out. Now if you need to count the rows, then just put md dot shape square brackets and 0, right? For rows it will be 0, and if you need to use columns, then if you need to call the shape of your columns, sorry, count of your columns, then put 1 into square brackets. Okay, So if I just run it, it will be just like this. So there is 9 columns and 398 rows. Now you are calling the names of your column, so that will be like where did it go, md dot columns. Okay, whatever your data frame name is here, and then dot columns, so that will give you the names of your headers of your data frame or names of your column. Okay, so similar you can use it from here by md dot columns dot values, so both will give you the similar results. Next, let's say you want to print out a single column or a single variable from the data set, then you can do it with uh, md square brackets and then into inverted commas the name of your column. Okay, so this is how it will show you the output. So that is your mpg entry. If you just take a look at the data frame, then you'll see that mpg is the first column, so it will give you the 18, 15 and so on. So there are 5 values for your head command, and in here the whole row will whole column will be shown to you. Now next, md dot head, it will give you 5 entries, md dot head, and then number of uh, entries that you need to retrieve, so that will give you the number you need to put here. Okay, and for a similar way, if you opposite to head, tail will give you the last entries. Head will give you the starting initial entries, and tail will give you the last entries. Now say md dot log, and you need to call all the rows and the variable. Car name is your variable in your data set. You can see it here. So if you need to call that column with all rows, you see, so that is stored in md car. Okay, so say you want to do some computation on a single variable or 2 or 3 variables, then you can do it with this command. Let's say you are retrieving the you are retrieving the variable and then assigning it to a new variable, and then you can see the and then you can do the further computation on the variable, right? Now here is one exercise for you that you need to submit as the previous and this assignment. Okay, so I'll put it in your classroom. Okay, from that you can do it. Now the next one is calling the outliers. Okay, so that you can sir has shown you the box plot, right? So is there anybody in the classroom? If you are present, just say yes or no. Okay, so are you getting all this? Because there has been no response from you guys. Pratik, Vikash, Shreyas, Devansh, are you getting all the things that we learned today till now? Or was it too fast? Okay, so assume that everything is all right. So we'll do with the outliers. Okay, thank you. We'll move on with the how to call the outliers from our data set. So first we need to do this thing. Okay, import your pandas library and then read your data frame that you want that you are going to work with. Okay, so this is how you import your data set into Python, Jupyter IDE. Okay, then there are few other libraries that we will require it for the further functions and operations. So NumPy, we know about NumPy. Then there is Math library. So it contains all the functions, right? Mathematical functions, pi values and exponential values and all that. Okay, so whatever it is an advanced level mathematics library. So basic arithmetic operations you can do without the math library, but when you say simple example, when you need to work with pi value, then you will need to import the math library. Okay, then statistics and stats. This will give you some output. Okay, output in the sense that say you have run code, right, and you need to check the accuracy or quartiles or something. So for that things, from the output you need to extract something like summary or like that. So for that, side or stats will be required, and then import statistics. So that is your statistic library, and then the matplotlib dot pyplot. Okay, so this library is for plots, right? Whenever you need to do some graphs. Okay, so at that time you will need to import the python matplotlib library. Okay, so we are importing it as plt. Okay, now so these are the few libraries that you need to import to run or execute the further command. So first we'll see what type, how our data looks like. So generally this will give you an idea about how your data will look like. Okay, so say there are this one car name is having some categorical variables, right? Some names are there. Categorical means you have given some classes or rank or say distinction, what grade you have achieved, or say there are few entries only. Let's say there are four types of car or four type of houses, four types 12 entries for a year, right? So there are 12 months in a year, so that 12 will be your categorical type of variable. Okay, so the whole data can be divided into those categories. So that is your categorical variable. So that you can see from this initial preview of your data. Okay, and other thing, there are numerical values. So this will give you just a brief idea about what type of
Excuse
variable
me,
you
sir.
are. Yes.
So can we use all these function while we are using XLS format for the file?
Yes, I guess you can do that. Are you facing any problem? Because
Yes,
what
sir.
will
It is generally suggested you go for CSV. That is safe also, because I have myself used XLX many times, and then there were many for whatever reasons. The function was not supported, errors were coming. Then I switched to CSV, and I was getting the answers. So my experience is that you should always go for CSV. I mean, that's a better option where you'll save your time and unnecessarily many errors. I think Python is more suited for CSV files. What I my experience till now. You may also suggest something, Amit.
Uh, so it's as you said, it's better to use CSV, right? Because what will happen that when you are having some large data, then your Excel file will consume more memory, right, compared to CSV. And other thing, there will be micros and macros, some technical things between this CSV and uh, the CSV and then Excel file, right? So I have only used the CSV files so far. So I think it's fine if you use the CSV file, because there is not much more difference between the CSV and Excel file. Okay, because what will happen that when you are reading some data from text file also, so you'll see that to make it more structured, you will need to convert the text file into CSV files also. So that's a easy way, right? Text to CSV. So that is why I guess CSV is much compatible with other formats too, and the codes are also run fine with it. So we'll advise that you use the CSV file. Okay. There will be another command for reading the Excel file, so that you can look up on internet. I guess it is XLS something. Okay. You can check that for Excel too. Okay. So for now, we'll focus on CSV only. Okay, so we have imported the data, imported the libraries. We looked at the data, how it will, how it is, right? Now then, the next command is describe your data set. So that will give you a brief about, not brief, a few of these statistics, okay, about your data set. So you can see that your MPG variable has 198 entries. So this count will give you the number of missing entries, right? You can check whether there are missing entries or not, because they are you see important, because you are having some 50 or 50 or 100 data points, and 10 or 20 are missing, then your whole average will be shifted, right? So that is why the missing values are also critical when you are working with numerical type of data set, or you can say also for the other type of. Okay, so the count will give you the the count will give you um, uh, the missing values and the number of entries in each variable. Okay, so next, mean value. This will give you the average of each and every numeric type of variable. The next is STD, that is your standard deviation. Okay. So from mean and standard deviation, you can see the distribution of your variable or your data set. Okay. Then these five entries are combination, right? So you can see the minimum value, 25th first quartile, second quartile, third quartile, and maximum value. Okay, so this will give you an idea the distribution of your data set. This will also give you a distribution of your data set. So I guess sir has explained you the quartiles in box plot charts and all, so no need to discuss them here. Okay, so we'll move on to the quartiles. Okay. So it is called quartiles, but the code here is quantile, right? So you need to keep that in mind. Now, let's say we want to compute the quartile of the Excel variable or whatever. So one more thing, you'll see that in here, in your R data set, we were having some, you'll see that the description statistical review will give you only uh, 8 variables, right? MPG, cylinder, displacement, horsepower, weight, Excel, model year, and origin. Okay, so the car name is missing because it's a non-numerical type of data. Okay, so that is why the describe will give you only the summary of statistical summary of your numerical type of variable.
I think
Data.
Amit, the other day in Spider one, I mean, it was giving less number of columns. No, that I told that it might be solved in Python.
Uh,
I mean, this
uh,
Jupyter file.
yes, sir.
So I think Jupyter file is giving all the columns, right?
Yes, sir.
Spider
In
was
here
not
also,
giving.
yes, sir. I
Uh,
guess that problem was in head command, right? If I
uh,
count correctly.
Let me see. I think the problem was not with the head command. Exploring data. Yeah. So just let
If you
this.
just call, I guess.
Yeah, it was md dot describe. So just that
Okay.
data frame dot describe, and still it was giving only. So there's a issue with the
Yes.
spider, I guess. It does not give
Yeah.
you all the data. All the
Yes.
data it should give, but there was an issue. Okay.
Yes. So in Jupyter, there you will see all the variables. So okay. So we were on quartiles, right? So let's say you want to compute the first quartile of your Excel variable, then you need to specify first for which variable you want to compute the further operation. Okay, so that will be ds into square brackets, that is your variable name. So it's an easy way. Okay, so rather than ds dot ilog and then your index of your variable. Okay, so this will give you an understanding also, easy understanding also, that what variable you are calling. Okay, and then dot. So as I had said, as we discussed it earlier, that the numpy array and data frame will have different syntax of syntax for operations, right? So you will see that whenever you are working with data frame, so data frame variable from the data frame will be called, and then if you need to perform some operations on that, then after the name or after the variable, you need to put a dot, and then your command will be there. Okay, so similar you can see here, the variable name is given here, and then dot describe is there. So but in NumPy, what will happen? You need to put it before, right? So just if you take the example of, okay, so x was our numpy array, right? So for md dot head, we had this output, right? But you cannot run it for numpy. It will give you an error that numpy and dot nd array has no attribute called head. So that is why it is important to for you to know on which type of variable you are working with. Okay, so better be say better be aware of your variables that you are working on, because the codes and commands and syntax will change. Okay, so now we have computed the 21st quartile. You can also compute the in between quartiles also. Okay, okay, then this is your third quartile. Now so we know how to compute the quartiles, and then we'll see that here is a function that will fetch you the outlier from your data set. Okay, so this is how the function will look like. So this is define, means you are defining the function find outlier, then you are giving input. Okay, for input there are two entries. First is your ds, that is data set, and then second one will be column name. So for what variable, it is not necessary that you need to put only columns here. You can put any x y z. Okay, but you need to fetch that properly in the further commands. Okay, so from the ds data set, we are calling the uh, column, okay, or variable, and then performing the 25th quartile operation on that variable. Okay, similar way we are computing the third quartile, that is 0.75 of the distribution. Okay, so first quartile, third quartile will be here. This is your interquartile range IQR. Okay, quartile 3 minus third quartile minus first quartile value, that will give you interquartile range. Okay, now you need to as you know, the outlier will be beyond the 1.5 IQR, interquartile range, and uh, so that is plus minus 5 IQR. That will be your region of focus. Okay, that will give you an accurate distribution of your data set, and whatever values or data points are not in that range, that will be your outlier. So that are off from the distribution. Okay, that are deviating from the distribution that we have collected from the data set. Okay. So this will give you a high value, that is a high threshold. So for outliers, we need to uh, eliminate the values, right? So how will we eliminate the outliers? So we'll put the condition that whatever values are below the 1.5 IQR from the first quartile, and whatever values that are above or beyond the 1 point plus 1.5 quartiles IQR from the third quartile. Okay, so the higher value, that will be your plus 1.5, and lower value. So these are the two thresholds or limit, you can say, upper limit and lower limits below outside of which you need to eliminate the data points. So that will be your outliers. Okay. So now in here we have used the ds.log. So whenever there is name of the variable, okay, location is defined, not index, location. Okay, so that will give you so this will give you the location, right? So in ds column, ds data frame, col column, whenever the values are less than lower limit, so that will be our outlier. Or, okay, so this symbol is for or. Okay, and then d in ds data frame column, col column, whatever values are above the upper limit, so that will also be your outlier. Okay, so there are two conditions for outliers. Okay, below and above. So this will give you all the data points that are outliers. Okay, from the this uh, outliers data points, you are calling the values and storing it into ds. Okay, you can avoid the same names. So ds4, that will give you an outlier. So now the function has been defined. First define find the outlier, that is your function name. These are the inputs, and return will give you the uh, so if you understand if you need to simply understand that uh, what return will signify. Okay, so whatever variable that you have written here, after the return command, so that variable will be stored. And apart from this ds34, that is lower value, higher value, IQR, quartile 1, quartile 3, this will be a temporary memory, in temporary memory, so that this uh, values will not be stored, right? So this will not be stored in your system memory, so you cannot call it from here. Okay, say after running the code, you need to call the lower value and higher value. You cannot call it because it is not stored in the system. Now outlier, find outlier. So this is your outlier function that we have defined here. First you need to put the name of your function. So this will be your user defined function, right? So user defined function name, then first data name, okay, data name or variable name that you want to work on. Here ds is your data, then mpg your variable name. Okay, so from ds data set, mpg your variable name, and the output will be stored as outlier. So you see that in return only single variable is there, so in here also you need to put only a single variable. Okay, so this is how your you can operate the function or execute the function. So outlier will give you the mpg cylinder, all this value. Now if we need to interpret this output, so you will see that, okay, we'll just, okay, now if we see that for mpg value, index is given here, right? So this index will be consistent with the your data set index that has been stored. So it will start from 0. So you it will be easy to interpret. Don't need to plus minus something. Okay, so for you'll see that outlier the entry is at 322. So if we just call this 322, 322, 324. Okay, so the outlier is given, the outlier output is here, and in here the 1 and 2 previous entries from that outlier is called for, just to compare. So you will see that mpg value is we had run this outlier of function only for mpg, right? So whatever that plus minus 1.1 1.5 iqr was done, so that was executed only for this mpg variable, right? So this 46.6 value, that is your uh, outlier. Okay, so this value is your outlier, and for that we are calling the whole row. Okay, we have called the entire row so that we can see that is there any difference between this upper and lower limit. Let's say that from this in this data set there are multiple outliers and there is a pattern, say the Mazda. Okay, so you have a data set. Just understand, imagine this: you have a data set in which there are cars. Okay, so the cars being the say Maruti Suzuki, Honda City, Duster, and the fourth one is Ferrari. Okay, so when you compare the mpg for okay, uh, horsepower. Okay, the horsepower is easy. So for horsepower, you'll see that Honda City, the Maruti Suzuki, and the other one. So middle range cars will be having lower horsepower compared to Ferrari. Okay, so you will see that if you call all the outliers for horsepower, then you can see the pattern in that data. So that, and this is how the outlier will be helpful to you in understanding the data set. So for now we have called the outlier from the data set, and we have called the outliers from the data set, and we can see the whole row for that now. Next, let's say we need to identify the lower. We just need to know or be aware of our lower and upper threshold. Then we can call it from here. As we discussed earlier, you the all these variable will not be stored in your system memory unless and until you put them here. Okay. So earlier, what was done? Only DS34 was returned, right? So only DS4 is there stored in the system, but now we have specified that we need these three values. Okay, so this will give us. So if you just take a break, can you guys run this command in your system? So it won't be a one-way lecture only. So
Excuse me,
everyone,
sir.
yes.
Sir, I am using Google Colab and I am facing one error of tokenizing the data.
Can you just share your screen?
Sure, sir.
Okay, you see, go to the first line. Okay, so whoever is using this Google Colab, you need to understand two or three things. You need to import your data set on your Google Drive, right? So first upload your data set on your drive. So there is a few lines of command. Okay, so whenever you are working with Colab, you need to perform that three or four lines of command so that the system knows, no, not this one. There will be you need to link your Google account with your this Colab account with your drive. Okay, it will be required every time you run this command, run this code on Google Colab, right? So first you need to link your Google Colab with your drive. From that you need to import the files, okay, and then it will be run, right? So also there is another line of command that you need to write before this PD read CSV, okay. So if I can find, I'll share it with you, right? It is available on internet. I will share a link with you, right? Pratik, is it all right?
Okay, sure, sir.
I'll share a link with you because the things run differently on Colab, so you need to do some changes. I'll share it with you. I'll put it in classroom so that everyone, whoever is facing this error. Okay, so is it visible now? Hello, my screen is visible, right? Okay. Okay, so lower value and higher value, we are calling these three values from our function, right? So that will be okay. So only change we have done in here is just we have added two more variables, that is our upper and lower threshold limits. Okay, and then uh, just run it here. Now you need to keep in mind that you need to change the your output variable also, because you see that the function will return you three values. You need to define here, you need to put three variables, okay, in which the data will be stored. So first ds ds, that is your outlier, that will be stored in outlier. Then lower value will be stored in lv, and higher value will be stored in hv. Okay, so if we just run this now, again you can see that the output is here. Okay, now it's the same as earlier. We have called the previous and uh, forward two values now. So matplotlib that we had called for. Okay, so that okay, okay, we missed something. So you need to run this command. Okay, so I forgot. Uh, First, everybody try this code. Okay, Devansh, Shreyas, Vikas, all of you, just run this command and do it for uh, rather than on mpg, do it on your horsepower. See if there is any difference between the outlier entries. We'll wait for 10 minutes. Anybody done? Are you guys doing it or not?
Amit, I think we can go ahead.
Okay, sir. Okay, so this is the three output function for outliers. So with this, you can see the outlier also, and then plot the outliers with this, not outliers, plot the whole Excel variable values. Okay, so this is how the plot will look like. PLT dot plot DSXL. Okay, now next, let's say we have called the upper and lower limits in here. So lower limit is 0.25. Okay, so you can see here there might be. Okay, so just a second. In Excel variable, there are seven outliers. Okay, so if we have just plot it here, Excel, and then we are calling for the upper and lower values. Okay, so so lower value for outlier, that is 8.8 something. So that will be in here something. So these all these points that are below 8.8, that are your outlier. Okay, and the upper threshold, that will be 22.2. So whatever values 22.2 are above this, you can see that that will be your outlier. Okay, above this line. So this is how the outliers are found in here. Okay, then for outlier, we'll send you the assignment. Okay, I guess that will be in the next lecture. For today, your assignment is this. Read in your classroom. Right? So